Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/JuCowFTW.
Check out our blog where you can listen and download our shows at jucowftw.blogspot.com.
And find us on iTunes by simply searching for JuCow's Podcast Kingdom.
And submit your questions to us at ask.fm/JuCow. We will answer them all each week on Undressed to Impress with a Girl.
You were cute and popular, I was just a little nerd. Right about now you're making me feel perturbed. I was the gross kid that you teased in gym, and when you got my hopes up, you brought back to him. Do you remember me? Well, let me refresh your memory. As I kill ya, I'm a homicidal maniac, so you better watch your back. I got a knife and I'm using it tonight. Whoa, you used to put me down, soon you'll be in the ground, and then I'll be feeling alright.
Welcome to PSYCOW. I'm Kyle,
And I'm Stacy.
and this week we had an awesome guest. It's Robert Kurtzman, special effects makeup artist extraordinaire.
Legend.
Yeah. He's an awesome guy, really down to earth and real cool.
As when we were younger and we had our, Fangoria magazines and reading those, they always had the Tom Savini school, right?
Yeah, and I've always wanted to be a writer and director, but also before I did any of that, I wanted to go to special effects makeup artist school. And then I found out, like you did, we suck.
Yeah, I have no art skills. I actually did take an art class where I had to sculpt somebody's face, and it turned out really, really bad.
And the cool thing about this interview is that we wanted to talk about so many things, because if you don't know all of Robert Kurtzman's work, just go on IMDb and look at all the awesome stuff he's done. I mean,
Literally. I mean, if you grew up in the same time we did, more than likely you've seen a lot of Robert Kurtzman's work, and you might just not be aware of it, because you have Army of Darkness, Evil Dead 2, he was on Scream, I believe.
Elm Street 3.
Night of the Creeps, New Nightmare.
Yeah, there were probably 45 movies I could have talked to him about, and so
Exactly.
the podcast would have been. I wouldn't mind, but I know he's got stuff to do.
Exactly.
But yeah, so hopefully in the near future, what we can do is maybe get him back on the show and talk to him about some of our favorite movies, and just he can tell us the behind the scenes of making some of the effects and everything. But this go around, we wanted to talk about his career and how he got to this point, some of his favorite things.
And also his school,
Yeah.
which is in Ohio, and that's honestly, being a horror fan in Ohio, that's kind of a big deal, because, I mean, it seems like most of the time you have to go to LA for anything like that. And being in this little state, check out, I mean, if you're interested in doing any kind of something like that, special effects, makeup, whatever, I would definitely suggest checking out a school, because it looks pretty amazing.
Oh, and that, and I know a lot of the Face-Off cast is there too, like Becky and House. They both work for him. So I mean, it's obviously it's a great place to go. So, and I would love to go. I wish I had some kind of artistic talent, but I can only doodle. But yeah, we're gonna shut up now. We're gonna get straight to the interview with Robert Kurtzman. So enjoy. Were you a horror fan growing up?
Yeah, huge horror fan. I grew up on, of course, all the Universal monster movies, and of course, everything from the Poe films, the Hammer films, all that. So.
Absolutely.
And that's I used to watch late night horror host shows all the time. That's how I kind of got hooked on everything. And then I started reading the magazines at the newsstand, because I was a paper boy. A friend had a paper route, and we would drive around all the time, on our bikes, throwing papers out, and we would be at the newsstand all day taking our paper money and buying shitty magazines like, Famous Monsters and Fangoria and crap.
So when did you know that you wanted to do special effects and makeup?
It took a while. I was always a fan of it, but it wasn't until my high school years, when I started to really think. When I discovered it was an actual industry, you know what I mean?
Right.
And then that's when, I was like, okay, people are making money doing this stuff, and it's a creative outlet, and that's when I was like, wow, now how do I learn this shit, And
Was there a movie in particular that made you just go, I have to do that, I got to figure out how to make those effects?
Well, it's a cumulative, or cumulative. The early days was, the classics, the Universal movies, the Hammer films, things that I consider classics.
Right.
And then in the 80s, there was kind of early 80s. That's when I got into the business. But just prior to that, in the late 70s, early 80s, there's the movies like The Thing, American Werewolf, Star Wars, those kind of films. And that's when you're really like hooked. And for me, The Thing was probably the biggest one. But
right.
Just it's still a classic to me. But
Night of the Creeps is actually listed as the first film in the makeup department that you did, which to this day stands as a classic in the horror world.
Yeah, it is. And actually, I was just at a convention with Fred Decker, which is cool, and Jason Lively, they were there, and it was kind of fun seeing them after all these years. But before that, though, I had worked at Empire Pictures, and I was doing makeup effects on the crew for John Buechler and films like Troll, Eliminator, Ghoulies.
Oh, wow.
Terror Vision. So,
I actually just watched that for like the 8th time about a week ago.
They're so good.
Yeah.
They added that to Netflix, and I was like, yes.
It was a great training ground, though, because it was like the Roger Corman of the day, because, Corman started doing that years before, working with young filmmakers and young artists and cultivating, his group of people, and Charlie Band kind of did that in the 80s, and that's when we got into it, and then we all kind of started there. I mean, me, Howard, Greg, Gino Crognoli, Mitch Devane, John Vulich, who used to own Optic Nerve, Everett Burrell, who used to own Optic Nerve, and now he's a big visual effects producer. We all started at the same shops, during that era, so kind of cool.
Well, you have one of the most impressive resumes in the history of the horror world. I mean, I wish we had time to talk about every movie, because Stacey and I are such huge fans of everything.
I don't want to talk about every one of them.
No, I know. What movies are
there's a few on the list that I'm embarrassed by, so whatever.
That'd be like a 7-hour podcast. But what films are you most proud of that you worked on?
Oh my God, there's a lot of them. There's a whole variety of movies that when TMD started out, we did everything from low budget to and gradually moved our way up. But we started out as the gore guys, doing gory movies, and then Nightmare on Elm Street, Texas Chainsaw, whatever. The sequels, of course, we all started with the sequels of the movies we grew up on. So, which was cool, and we got to work with the directors that we were like inspired by, which was really cool. But most of the ones I really like are the ones the more mainstream movies like Dances with Wolves or Misery or Army of Darkness, Evil Dead. Well, I wouldn't say those. Evil Dead and Army of Darkness, Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness are like kind of the best film experiences. As a group of people making movies that you could have. And then the other ones were more Hollywood movies, but they had more mainstream effects that kind of launched us up into another level with doing animal effects and other things that we weren't known for. We were known as the gore guys, and then we got to do, a herd of skinned buffaloes and then City Slickers and Gross Anatomy. Those movies kind of pushed us up, out of the just, hey, you're the B horror movie guys. So those mean a lot to us, in our careers. So.
Right.
But,
well, Kyle and I are both huge fans of The Woman, which is one of the newer films you've worked on.
yeah.
And which,
well, here's the thing. I'll say this right now. Big budget, low budget, whatever, if I dig the project or the filmmaker, which in that case it was Lucky, and we're artists. We like to work with people who maybe have a vision. That's why I like working with Don Coscarelli all the time. Always manages to like pull something out. That's he's an independent filmmaker, but they managed to make cool movies. So, and I'll always do that. Work with somebody like that. So.
Well, you're working with them again in All Cheerleaders Die, right?
Mhm.
Are you having fun with that? Because me and Kyle are both
Well, we finished that months ago. I haven't seen the movie yet, but I'm sure it's going to be fun. I mean, Andrew's really proud of the movie, Van Houten, so it's I'm sure it's going to be cool. I've always been happy with the stuff we've done with them, and the talent he puts together, like Jugface. I'm really happy with that movie too. So.
Right, we're pretty close with Andrew now. We work with him a lot, and he's a really great guy. So we're happy that you get to work with him as well. I mean, we get to see your work combined with one of our I guess why we would call Andrew a friend now, I guess. But
He's one of those guys that you have to give kudos to people out doing what they do like that, because it's such a rough environment right now, and anybody can put a decent project together for the budget and whatever and get it out there. It's like impressive. So, and he's one of those guys. So.
Right. Well, what's one of the most difficult makeups you've had to do?
All of them are difficult.
Yeah.
Well, for the most part, but not really. I mean, do a zombie movie, whatever. Zombie. Age makeups are probably the hardest thing to do, and I've done a couple of them I'm not really happy with, but over the years. Probably the hardest thing I've had to do is the Bride of Reanimator. But only because me and Howard had to do that. It took us 9 hours to do it the first day we did it, because it's head-to-toe prosthetics.
Right.
And
right.
partial suit with multiple appliances overlapping, and, so it's probably the hardest thing I've ever done as a makeup, full body type of thing, nude girl doing, gluing things on their asses. It's like there's just nothing. There's nothing forbidden at that point. You're like, hey, can you lean back? I'm gluing between your legs, And it's like, but that was probably the hardest, because 9 hours. I think we got it down to about 6. After we did it once or twice, but I feel very happy with that makeup. So.
Right.
It was very good too. Very impressive.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
So, and you've gone from the makeup department to writing and directing. And the first film, I know you had another film, The Demolitionist, but Wishmaster is the first film I can think of. Was it pretty easy for you to transition from makeup to directing after working on film for so long?
Yes and no. I mean, there's a big learning curve with however you juggle what department you do. You know what I mean? It's like, that was, there's a lot of things on Demolition that I learned from the director of photography and other. You there? Did I get cut off?
Yeah. No, you're good.
No. Oh, I'm sorry. Somebody beeped in then. Which I'll ignore it. On my first day on Demolitionist, I never knew what an overhead was, I'm an effects guy, I had no clue what overheads were. Well, overheads are where you lay out your lighting pattern and your shots and your camera moves, and it's like an overhead blueprint of all your sets and stuff. I had no clue that they did that. I was like, I'm just going to go to the set and tell them where I'm going to put the camera. Well, I didn't know that everybody needed to know where to put the lights and shit, So I learned that on my first film, and then after that, that's all I do. So,
right.
Do the overhead, put your shot list and your storyboards together. But, so kind of naive in the early days of like, I want to be a director, but do I really know what I'm doing type of thing. And then, luckily, the good thing about being a makeup effects artist is that you interact with multiple departments. So you work with stunts, practical effects, wardrobe, makeup, straight makeup department. you work with everybody. And so you kind of learn what it takes to help them out. So when you're directing, you're able to go, hey, look, I know they need more time to do this, or they need, they can pull this out this way. And, you learn tricks of the trade, like you're doing squibs on the outside of a van, but you only have one van to squib, and you do the exterior squibs, and then you go inside, and you have a bunch of people on the outside pulling tape off with a light box behind it, so it looks like the squibs are blowing through.
Right.
So you just learn it, cheats, big cheats. It's all cheats.
Well, digital technology has grown so much in the past few years. Well, I mean, probably the past 10 years, definitely. How do you feel about CGI? Do you prefer the practical effects?
I'm kind of on the fence. Like, everybody asks that, but
Right.
There's a place for both. And as a filmmaker, I like both. Sometimes I just can't afford things a certain way.
Yeah.
I can't make a, dinosaur run down the street, which is, you can do it with stop motion, or you can do it with CGI, or you can do it practically. Well, practically, to build something that runs down a street, the engineering feat is, like, ridiculous.
Right.
And so that doesn't make sense. Anymore, though, with bullet hits and things like that, I'm sure you've seen The Walking Dead.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, the blood spats and gore effects stuff is great. It's a lot of digital augmented with practical. And if it's done right, it's great. So, it's just a matter of figuring that out. And you don't always get it perfect every time. And it all depends on your budget and whatever. But when you get it down and get the right people, you get really good stuff.
Right.
Well, currently you're in Ohio, and you have your own school, the Kurtzman Institute of Art. Are you enjoying showing new students the ropes of special effects?
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, we've just been, pushing along, building awareness, trying to get it out there, and a lot of people just don't want to go to LA. I left LA, so.
I don't blame you. I'm in Ohio too, and I'd much rather be in Ohio than LA.
Yeah.
Look, I wanted to be in Ohio when I was 19, and that was good till until I had kids and had a family, and I was like, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
But it's a great place. It's a great place when you can go bohemian, put it that way. When you can go, you can just flop at somebody's house and work for 3 months on, on a show, and you're not getting paid shit.
Right.
And which is kind of the early days of K&B. I mean, we had a house, and it was like 4 guys renting it, and then everybody in town, everybody that now as makeup guys were like crashing on our floor. So, and it was just a commune. But eventually that gets old, and you got to move on and, get a real life. So.
Well, I know Stacy got the chance to meet you, I believe, at a Horror Hound before, right? Stacy?
Yes.
And I know that she and I will both be meeting you again at a Horror Hound in just a couple of weeks. Do you enjoy doing the whole convention circuit?
Yeah, I do. The rough part about the convention circuit is, committing to dates, and then you don't know what's going on in between that, when something pops up. So,
Right.
but, you don't want to bail. But yeah,
so
no,
fun
I actually
events.
enjoyed it. I love seeing the fans, love hanging out. It's a good weekend away from home,
Right.
Well, do you have any upcoming projects you're currently working on?
Yeah, well, we just finished Late Phases with Larry President's company.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
Yeah, which is a werewolf movie. Damn it, I'm going to be really bad because Adrian, and he's got a name that I have trouble pronouncing. So
It's okay.
Adrian directed it. He's done a really cool movie called Cold Sweat. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's really freaking great. It's like Wages of Fear set up in an apartment building type of thing.
Right.
And it's it's Sorcerer, Wages of Fear, and it's a good movie. And he is making his U.S. debut, I believe, with it. And we did the werewolf effects for it, the suits and everything. So, and Brian Spears did the gore effects on it. So,
Oh, right on.
which usually does he's the guy that Larry always uses for that stuff. So,
Right.
and yeah,
Well,
but that's. I mean, we're in post production on it, so it's yeah, a while. It hit a few of the sites already, with exclusive stills and whatever. But
yeah, I know personally, being Lucky McGee fans, we can't wait to see All Cheerleaders Die, just for Stacy and I, and to see your work again with Modern Cinema. It's just great. But
that should be fun. I can't wait to see it either. So.
Right.
I hear good things, but I haven't seen it. It's like premiering at the film festivals and stuff, and I'm like, still haven't seen it. But,
yeah, I think it's actually premiering with Eli Roth's Green Inferno actually as well, which is pretty cool. Nice double feature. But the way we like to end the show each week is we call it the PSYCOW 8. It's basically a speed round. It's just 8 quick questions.
okay.
The first one is, what's the scariest movie to you of all time?
For me, being a Catholic, it's The Exorcist.
Thank you. What's the best movie you've seen in the last 5 years?
God, that's tough. I will say this: I'm kind of split between action movies, so you're gonna have to. I'm a guilty pleasure guy, and I loved Olympus Has Fallen, but because I'm a geeky action guy, and I had a good time at that, and I liked it better than the other one. But God, as far as horror films, I don't know. I kind of trend towards. I love James Wan's stuff. I'm actually enjoying his movies right now a lot.
Yes.
Insidious and the new one.
Conjuring.
The new one. Yeah, Conjuring. They creep me out. I like them. I'm having a good time with them. I'm kind of jaded at this point. Like, things really have to impress me.
Right.
but I just like to have a good time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Well, and you're speaking of cheesy guilty pleasures, so I'll go ahead and jump to that one real quick. That's actually one of the questions: is what's your cheesy guilty pleasure movie outside of horror? Something that you have to watch all the time.
Well, I'll name 2 of them. You'll hate them. But one is Roadhouse, and Howard will laugh at this if he listens to this.
Yes.
With Patrick Swayze.
Soup's
Yes.
kicking everybody.
I love Roadhouse. That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
a good
The other one would be like Red Dawn, the original.
Yeah, that's a good movie too.
That's a good movie too.
And not even horror films. They're just, like I told you, I'm like more of an action geek than anything. But those movies are like completely cheesy, guilty pleasures for me.
I've screamed Wolverines at the top of my lungs at least.
Then I have Harry Knowles. When I left L.A., Harry Knowles, Greg made a videotape. It was like Robert Rodriguez, Bill Paxton, James Zahn, all these guys doing, is it James Zahn? No, Chris Zahn, doing all these videos for me. And it was, it was all them doing like the Wolverine thing and shit, like from Red Dawn, so funny. And
what would you say is your favorite movie you've worked on so far?
Well, other than my own, because it's a great experience, I would say it's the Evil Dead movies. Army Darkness, Evil Dead 2.
Right.
Only because of kind of the family unit that Sam and Rob and Bruce put together on those movies. It was really just kind of the pinnacle of, working with people, it was just great. So.
Well, being a monster creator, I'm very interested to see what you say with this one. This question is, what's the worst horror movie monster of all time?
Wow. You mean going back to the 60s, or do you mean like...
Pretty much every monster in the 50s, I believe, but I mean...
Oh my God.
What's the first monster that comes to your mind that you just remember watching and you're like, what the hell is this?
Here's the problem with that. I can't answer that because as a kid I loved those anyway.
Right.
So it's hard for me to say Tabonga the Tree Monster was like horrible when I actually loved it, you know?
Are there any
So-
are there any more recent monsters in the past maybe 10, 20 years that you just saw that you were like, get that shit
You
out?
know, here's what I'm going to say with that. I don't want to rag on anybody's work,
Right.
and everybody has their own issues doing any project they do, budget restraints, shooting restraints, anything. So it's hard, because I get ragged on enough, on my effects throughout the years. So, and it's not always our fault. So,
Right, absolutely.
Right.
So I have to say no. I'm not going to say shit on that one. But,
Okay.
What is something you've learned from a horror movie?
that I have learned from horror movies.
Yes.
The cool thing about horror movies is they have everything from drama to thrills to effects, gore. I mean, I love horror films because they have every element of all the other movies thrown into one.
Right.
So
Definitely.
that's what I like.
What's your favorite decade of horror?
Yeah, it have to be when I came through the business. It's gonna be 80s and 90s.
Right.
Those are
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
ones. What's your favorite line from a horror film? Favorite quote?
God, I don't know. It'll probably be a Bruce Campbell thing, but I don't know. Yeah, who's laughing now is probably it.
You're